You are listening to the Centropic Oracle, an audiobook podcast of science fiction and fantasy short stories that make you think and feel.
The Commonwealth Turn by William Delman. I stared at my phone, glued to the drone footage. Our daughter Drexler looked ferocious, wielding her paddle, the carbon fiber blades slicing and driving through the Berkeley Canal, her kayak incising the surface like a scalpel. The crowd around us was vacillating between shocked whispers and cheers, between looking at their phones and tablets and squinting at the racers coming up the canal. Julie Quick, the Olympic team captain and her closest competitor, had fallen 6 lengths back and seemed to be flagging. "We are witnessing history, people," one of the commentators yelled. His voice echoed, booming through the Canal Park PAs and the live web coverage. "Drexler Reese, an unheralded woman, barely 18, is about to reach the Commonwealth Turn, faster than anyone in the history of the Boston 4000. I lowered the volume on my earbuds and looked at my wife. "How is she doing this?" I said quietly. My voice evaporated in the crowd's crescendo. "Impressive." Sarah was smiling at her tablet, her eyes voraciously consuming a half-dozen charts and graphs. The feed of our daughter's preternatural efforts sat in a corner, surrounded by data. That's when I knew. Barely a week before, Sarah and I stood on the Mass Avenue Bridge, huddled like spies, arguing between sips of iced coffee. "It's my project, Thomas, and I'm telling you, there's almost no risk. DARPA is already getting results with my work in military trials. We can do this." "Are you serious?" "I know she hasn't been getting the training time she hoped for. But even if she misses the Olympic trials, there's still college, scholarships, and in 4 years, who knows? No matter what happens on Sunday, she's going to be fine." "Fine? All she's ever wanted is to be the best, and we can give her that. There aren't even any rules for what I'm talking about. I checked. Besides, she doesn't even need to know, at least not right away. I can infuse one of her protein shakes, and we can explain later." Sarah's voice had dropped in volume as a crowd of pedestrians passed behind us. "We are not turning our daughter into one of your projects. It isn't right." I felt my face turning red, even as I tried to keep my voice down. "That's not fair. This isn't about me. Just because you're afraid," I cut her off. "Even if we did pump our daughter full of your nanobot super serum, or whatever you call it, who says that's going to make her the best? She'll be out there with 100 other women, most of them in their mid-20s, some of them professionally coached and trained. And don't forget, Quick's in her field this year. The Olympic captain, Sarah. And there's always the element of chance. No, if we do this, only one thing is guaranteed. Our daughter will never be the same. And if she finds out, she'll never forgive us. You're also ignoring what might happen to her and us, legally speaking, if we get caught." Sarah dismissed this last concern with a perfunctory wave. "Tom, there are no tests for this stuff yet. Or I should say there are no tests I didn't personally design. There's no way for the athletic board or anyone else to find out. I'm telling you, our daughter will be amazing. And not just for this race. She'll break every record in the book before she's done. And in 20 years, these treatments are going to be everywhere. The human race is evolving, Tom. It's a new world." I'd had enough. "You know that's not what this is really about. This is about Drexler, what she wants. That's why you're having this argument with me and not her. She'd never agree to this. Call it what you want, but it's doping, and you know it." Her face went blank. We stood in silence for a moment, drinking our coffees and watching the river before she turned to me. "Right. I have to run. See you tonight." Then she pecked me on the cheek before leaving me to watch her disappear into the midday crowd. Our evening had passed quietly. I'd made a vegetarian chop suey, heavy on the edamame for Drexler. One night slid into the next day, and the next. I hadn't brought up the subject again, and neither had Sarah. The silence had felt like an agreement. We were just another family, each of us quietly struggling with our issues, together. But standing by the canal in Commonwealth Park, we might have been on different continents, living different races. Afraid, not wanting my fears to be true, I told myself I didn't know anything. Not really. Maybe Drexler had simply discovered an unknown reserve within herself. Or maybe her performance was a fluke, born of chaos and competition, the rest of the field struggling for myriad reasons, while our daughter plunged on, inexplicably unimpeded. Unless I asked, or Sarah told me otherwise, there was no way to know. My heart was pounding. Drexler was flying. The closer she came, the more clearly I could see her face. Beaded with spray and perspiration under the brim of her visor, her lead had grown to an improbable 10 lengths. She slowed her rhythm to prepare for the port side turn as I yelled out incoherent encouragement, bile rising in my throat. The world shrank to a muted point. The screen of my phone. Our daughter's face. I stared, searching for joy, satisfaction, desperation, anything that might suggest her mind. The drone swarm shifted above us to capture the oncoming Olympic captain and the pack behind her. Rather than slowing like Drexler, Quick poured it on, mouth open, teeth bared. By the time our daughter had finished the Commonwealth turn, Quick had shortened the lead to 5 lengths, her paddle slicing through the air like a propeller. I could hear Sarah cursing to herself over the cheering crowd. But Quick's burst forced her into a hard swerve that killed most of her momentum. By the time she'd finished and got the hammer back down, 2 other racers had climbed into her wash. Meanwhile, Drexler was cruising away towards Kenmore with inspiring, disconcerting ease. "Come on!" Sarah grabbed me by the shoulder. "Let's get over to the Storo Canal before she beats us there." Sarah weaved through the crowd while I followed, one eye still on my phone. Drexler reached the Hereford Junction. We found ourselves in a crush at the Beacon Crosswalk. I turned my sweaty face back toward the Hancock Tower, gleaming under the scathing sun, and wiped my forehead with a shirt sleeve. "Forget Staro. Let's try for the finish line." Sarah yanked me again. Tired and annoyed, I turned to see her relaxed, smiling, almost glowing. It had been a long time, years since I had seen her like that. "If we run, I think we can make it. She's going to win!" "You really want to run from here to the duck pond? You know Drexler hates it when we mob her after a race." Her joy dimmed a little before she shook her head. "Come on, Thomas. How many times are we going to get to watch our daughter set a new record?" That was the moment. The moment when I almost asked, but there was nothing I could do to set things right that wouldn't destroy our little family. And watching Drexler, I kept thinking of Sarah's argument, that humanity was evolving, and her work was part of that evolution. I pulled out my phone. The drone feed was zoomed in on our amazing daughter, smiling as the field fell further behind. I looked down at my loafers and decided. I couldn't control the past or the future, but I could embrace the moment. "Okay, let's go meet our girl." Sarah let out a surprising, excited whoop, and a few people turned to smile. Then the light changed and we were off, jogging toward the public garden ingress. We made it to the corner of Beacon and Arlington, just in time to watch Drexler hit the home stretch and break the finish line on our screens. Sarah shot me a smile before running into the street through a narrow break in the traffic, barely giving me a second to decide whether to follow. When I did a moment later, I nearly got myself killed by a smart taxi and had to dive back to the sidewalk. Getting up off the blistering concrete, palms skinned and pants ruined, I saw Sarah on the other side. She was still smiling, but something about her expression had changed, gone wistful. She waved before running for the pond, leaving me to wait for the signal change. I stood there and watched our daughter pump her paddle over her head, looking joyous and confused. The signal finally changed as Quick crossed the line, and I hobbled for it, hoping to catch up.
We hope you enjoyed The Commonwealth Turn by William Delman, read by Kenneth Tynan. If you'd like to learn more about the author and narrator of this story or make a donation to them, follow the story page link in the description. Pledge your support to us on Patreon for cool rewards and to help us bring you more stories. If you would like to submit a story for consideration or apply to be a narrator, a link to our submission guidelines is in the description. This story is copyrighted 2018 by the Centropic Oracle.